Good evening. It's Tuesday, October 21st, and we're here for the Brattleboro Select Board meeting. We convened the meeting at 5:30 and then went into executive session. We didn't take any action in executive session or upon leaving executive session. The first item on tonight's agenda is to approve the minutes from October 7, October 8, and October 9. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
We have motion to approve the minutes from October 7, 8, and 9. Are there any edits or comments from anybody on the board?
Can we meet any more often?
Hardly. Anybody who's in attendance have any comments about the minutes as presented? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the minutes as presented, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is chair's remarks. I'm going to start by giving a summary of some of the activity that's gone on during these meetings that have just been approved. The board has been diligently working on the town manager search. Since the last meeting of the select board in public session, I think we've had 4 executive sessions since that time. We had interviews of town manager candidates on the 7th and the 8th. Those were conducted by the select board with members of the staff committee and the citizens committee in attendance. And after conducting those interviews, we actually had a candidate back here this past Friday for a full day of meetings with the select board, with citizens committee, staff committee, and with a series of other employees and department heads. We are not yet ready to make any kind of an announcement, but we've been working many hours in an effort to close up the town manager search just as quickly as possible. We hope to have an announcement any day. The second thing I would note is that sometime, I think in the last 3 weeks, we received petitions that seek to amend the Brattleboro Town Charter so that 16-year-olds could vote. We've been looking into issues relating to those petitions, including the law that governs how we go about submitting a charter change for consideration. We've also been looking at issues relating to whether that's legal or not, because the Vermont Constitution sets the voting age at 18 rather than at 16. And so we've been asked to lower the voting age to 16, even though the Constitution says the voting age is 18 with some very limited exceptions. The board is going to be working over the course of the next weeks in terms of how that gets submitted for a vote. There are provisions in Title 17 that address the number of meetings we have to have before such a petition is submitted either to the voters or to town meeting for consideration. And I believe it is the board's intention to submit that petition, even though it's of questionable legality, to the voters or to town meeting for consideration. Ultimately, we should note, however, that final approval of a charter change rests with the Vermont legislature, not with the select board or with the voters of the town. And the legislature will then ultimately have to grapple, even if it's adopted here in Brattleboro, with how to deal with the request to change the voting age to 16 when Vermont's Constitution says the voting age is 18. Once again, like I say at the beginning of most every meeting, town was just hopping over Columbus Day.
It was.
Oh, God, it was great. So everybody, come on downtown. And then finally, I would note, without making any sort of comments about what happened in Keene over the weekend, I do want to note that Brattleboro Police is part of the mutual aid system, and we did send 6 officers over to Keene to assist in trying to maintain control over there. And all of those officers participated and came back safely without any injury. And we want to thank all of the members of the police department who participated in that effort and in the regular efforts to keep the community safe. Next item on the agenda is town manager's comments.
Thank you, David. The only comment I would have this evening is I'd like to take a moment to make sure the board and the public are aware that on Saturday, November 1st, there's going to be a full 3-minute sounding of the warning siren for Vermont Yankee. So this will only be a test. There'll be other press releases that'll be going out probably next week, but I thought I'd take this opportunity to just let everybody know Saturday, November 1st, the siren's going to sound for a full 3 minutes as part of a test. And remember that when the sirens do sound, please tune in to WTSA Radio.
Next item on the agenda, thank you. Next item on the agenda is select board comments and committee reports. Anybody?
The Waste Management Finance Committee is looking at a new hauling proposal, which will most likely incorporate single stream because of the costs. The contracts were received and opened, and now comparing them and figuring out what they actually say is underway.
Excellent. We pay a lot of money to the Solid Waste Management District annually.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we
And
do.
there are other issues
Yes.
that John has already and Patrick have already raised with the
Yep.
administrators there.
Right, because it's not so clear how much we get back for the money we pay.
It's going to be an ongoing process.
Yep.
Yeah,
For a
and
little bit.
there are going to be lots of changes.
Yeah, there are.
Good. Other comments under,
I think we'll hear about the police.
I think, yeah, I was going to say police
Right.
fire, but we're here.
we'll leave police fire until it's agenda item.
Yep.
Anybody else on the board? All right, next item on the agenda is public participation. It's an opportunity for anybody who's got something that they want to speak to briefly that's not on the agenda. James.
First, I would like to congratulate Chief Fitzgerald and Captain Kerrigan for their appointments, even though that is on the agenda. I'm here from the Citizens Police Communications Committee, but right now, as a public citizen, I wanted to cover 1 or 2 compliments that our officers do once in a while. Well, all the time, sorry. A very jarring experience, a drunk driver pulled into our driveway and drove straight onto our backyard to try to elude police for what was a DUI stop. Lots of commotion, and blue lights were certainly not what I ever wanted here at my home. I thank the Brattleboro Police and officers Eden, Carey, Amy Hamilton, for their help this evening. I have much appreciation for the Brattleboro Police Department. And I have one more. Good morning, to whom it may concern. I would like to compliment the professionalism and empathy of Detective Eric Johnson. I had the opportunity to observe his interrogation of a delicate situation and really appreciated the way he handled the interview. I feel he represented the Brattleboro Police with dignity and compassion. Sincerely, Dr. Duffy Johnson, Pastor. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak during public participation? Okay, well then the next matter on the agenda is under Water and Sewer Commissioners. We are looking for a motion to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
So moved. Double motion.
All right, we got a motion to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
I don't know how
Is there
you
any
beat it.
discussion from anybody on the board? Anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Patrick, would you just introduce us? I have to go check on something.
Of course.
You beat up the police anyways, you know.
Utilities.
It's on the agenda.
On the utilities. So Public Works Director Steve Barrett is here to update the board on plans to replace a vehicle within the Utilities Division and a proposal to actually transfer the vehicle that the Utilities Division is presently using to the Parking Enforcement Division, and I will pass that on to Steve Barrett.
Thank you. The Department of Public Works is recommending that we replace the Utilities Division 100 vehicle. That's the vehicle that I use and also my employees use together, along with the maintenance department. It's a 2005 Chevy, and we're asking to replace it with a 2015 Ford Interceptor. And what we did here is we're utilizing the state bid system. And so in the utilities budget, this board approved $30,000 for this purchase. The bid came in at $27,477. We are recommending that we add the extended warranty. It's been successful with our vehicles. And so with the total, that comes to $30,832. It's a slight overage, but what we're proposing to do is to take the existing vehicle and transfer that to the parking enforcement. And I think that's a good investment for the town. So,
Ordinarily, we receive some kind of a buyback for the vehicle, which would have brought it under the $30,000 budgeted amount.
the trade-in's worth approximately $2,700. So, you know, parking enforcement utilizes an old cruiser, and quite frankly, it's broke down at least 10 times this summer. So this vehicle makes them, with the boots and the heavy equipment that they have, it'll make them a good vehicle and give them a long-term life in use.
Anybody on the board have any questions? Or comments? Is there anybody who's in attendance who has any questions about this request to award the bid for this utility vehicle? Well, then we're ready for motion, please.
To award a bid in the amount of $30,832 to Scherer Chevrolet of South Burlington, Vermont for a 2015 Ford Interceptor with extended warranty.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of awarding that bid to Scherer Chevrolet for $30,832, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
Thank you.
I want to ride.
Is there any other business that we're going to attend to under Water and Sewer Commissioners? All right, then we're ready for a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Oh,
All right, we have a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Steve.
he's done.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. There's nothing under unfinished business. So the first item under new business is the police department swearing-in ceremony.
All righty.
So we have a newly appointed police chief, Mike Fitzgerald, and a newly appointed captain, Mark Carrigan, and we have a brand newly appointed sergeant, Adam Belleville. And so we want to say particularly congratulations to Adam, because I'm not sure that's been said in public yet. So here's to Adam. And given all of the changes at the police department, Patrick Moreland and the chief together proposed that we have a ceremonial swearing in, and there's a whole range of police officers here to all be sworn in again. So we invite all the officers on in, and we'll ask Annette Cappy to swear them all in.
All right.
Yep.
Holy crap. Can we afford this now? Is it? Okay, good. Do they start singing?
All the force, please come to here. Okay, are you gentlemen ready? Okay, are all of you folks ready? Okay. we'll do this together. I will say the oath, and I'll do it slowly, and if you'll repeat after me. Okay, we ready? If you want to raise your right hand. I, and state your name.
I,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will defend, enforce, and obey
that I will defend, enforce, and obey
the laws and Constitution of the United States,
the laws and Constitution of the United States,
the state of Vermont, and the town of Brattleboro,
the state of Vermont, and the town of Brattleboro,
that I will faithfully bring credit to the department
that I will faithfully bring credit to the department
and myself
and myself
as whatever your rank is.
as lieutenant officer,
Thank you. That I will strive to preserve life
that I will strive to preserve life
and maintain all human rights,
and maintain all human rights,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of,
and I will faithfully perform the duties of lieutenant officer
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
That's it.
I didn't get it all. Just booted.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming.
Congratulations, folks.
Thank you.
Well, that'll clear out the room. Nobody wants to stay for the budget talk?
What's up with that?
I know, John. I'd feel slighted if I were you. Patrick, was that all of our, was that the whole force?
I didn't count in my head, but that's just about it. There may have been a few, somebody on the road, not too many.
It's a good-looking force.
Yeah. All right, so the next item on the agenda, that was nice.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't that nice?
Really nice.
That was nice.
Good idea. Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is financial report. Hi, John.
Hello, David. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Let me get my paperwork.
All right. So in the packet is the report for the month of September, year-to-date through September. We're a quarter of the way through the year. The general fund stands at 23.6% of its budget after making adjustments for semi-annual and annual payments. So we're in really good shape. We're tracking very well to the budget. No surprises so far. The utilities fund was at 22.4% of its budget, and parking was at 20.1%. So they're a little bit below where we might have expected them to be. So again, a good thing. Also included in the report is the loan report, and you can see that the town has $4,111,525 in loans outstanding. One of the loans had payments that were overdue, and two of the loans were in default, but they were fully reserved. So again, a very active loan program in the town of Brattleboro, and we have been, as you know, we brought several loans recently to you for businesses that have started up in Brattleboro, and we're doing very well in small business loans.
You have 12 in process right now?
Yep. So the program income report shows that we have $398,223 in available cash to either lend out or issue grants for various projects in the town. And then finally, our grant report shows that we have 44 active grants and 12 grants that are in the application process. So an active grant program here in Brattleboro as well. Any specific questions on any of the information that's included in the financial report?
Anybody have any questions from the board about any of the financial papers that have been distributed? Is there anybody in attendance who's got any questions about the budget information that's been provided? for the report? Okay, good. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is the Police Fire Facilities Project. At the last meeting, we had asked the Police Fire Committee to provide us with some updated figures to consider going to a town meeting with, but then I read in the newspaper that there was a different sort of recommendation that came out of the police fire meeting, so I guess we're here to talk about it again. Anybody from the Police Fire Committee who wants to come up to the table is welcome to do that.
Here's Robin.
And maybe Steve, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the table so that you could explain through the various dollar figures that you presented.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, right, that's true. Yep.
Hi, would you introduce yourselves for the cameras?
Please.
I'm here, but I'm, for once in my life, sort of speechless, because the full committee met and we appointed a couple of people to come and meet with the selectmen tonight. And I thought that's the way it was until I read the paper and it indicated the whole committee was going to meet, so I passed up my supper and came down to join the meeting. Now, I know a little bit about what's going on, and if you have questions, I can try to help answer them. I can say basically the committee is anxious to move ahead and awaits your instructions. We would kind of like good, firm instructions from you so that we don't work for naught.
Mr. Chapman, you may want to introduce who's up there right now so everybody in the audience land knows.
Well, let them introduce themselves. Go ahead, you.
So you're introduce yourself.
Oh, all right. What's your first name?
Kathy. So this is Phil Chapman.
Great.
And this is Kathy
Dowd.
Dowd.
And I'm Steve Horton.
Right.
Project manager.
Thanks for being here.
Are we expecting Robin?
I thought we were expecting Robin. So
Yeah, we were.
right. So it was going to be Robin, myself, Steve Horton's our consultant, and Mr. Chapman's active on our committee. So we do have a couple things we'd like to update you with from our last meeting.
And are you ready to do that, Kathy, or Steve?
I think we'll start with Steve, and then I just have a couple things to add if he doesn't cover what we hoped he'd cover.
Thank you.
I believe you have in your packet this evening the Plan F option that the building committee has reviewed and discussed last week. What we would intend to have you do with this Plan F scenario or option is to consider this as a model for moving forward with your charge to the building committee in regards to both the police and the fire department renovations and new construction. I might take a minute to try to explain the logic behind this, if that would be helpful. And in the first paragraph, you'll note that there is a police station heading, and then the building committee is suggesting that the town consider purchasing another property for the police department in lieu of the past consideration of having the police department addition added onto the municipal building and renovations occurring at the municipal building at the same time. The present proposal suggests that a property be found that is more suitable for parking for the police department's specific needs, and that a property be found that probably, with some caveats, contains a building that could be renovated to house the police department as well. The figures that we have applied to the police station scenario are our very best assumptions at this point. They're not, most of them are not, could not be yet cast in concrete, primarily because we are not sure of what property to recommend yet. So we are asking for some consideration in that regard, but we have assumed a value of $850,000 for the proposed purchase of another property that may or may not contain a building. We will be looking for your approval subsequent to this discussion to proceed on that basis in reviewing possible properties and bringing that information back to you at a later date. I think that's a critical component of this proposal. Second on that list would be to renovate that said existing building in this scenario at approximately 16,000 square feet, which is based on the presently known police program, meaning how much space they need to have to function properly. And we used a figure of $150 a square foot for that renovation. We can say for certain that based on those figures above, that the architect's fees would be suggested at an 8% factor to design and provide construction administration from the design team, or $192,000. We are using a factor of 6% for furniture and equipment on all proposed projects moving forward, or a factor of $175,000. It's way early in the game, so we always recommend a contingency of 10%. And then we've applied a factor of 40% of the expenses to date to the moving forward proposed police station scenario to be fair about assessing the costs that have been expended to date. And that figure is 40% of the cost to date, except for the Donnell property purchase, which is, if you recall, a $300,000 factor, leaving a remaining expenses to date of about $650,000. Of that $650,000, 40% of that cost is $260,000, and that has been applied in this scenario to the police station costs, to be fair. Moving down the page, we have used the same figures in the past for the central fire station. Present plan, which if you all recall, would be to renovate the existing central fire station and add on to the rear of the central fire station where the Donnell property used to be. We're still using the $5,500,000 renovation and addition cost that was vetted out early in the process with both DEW McMillan and our architect. The architect fees to complete that portion of the design and construction administration factors out to be $125,000. Again, we've applied the 6% furniture and equipment factor for this project, a 10% contingency again, because it's still too early in the game. We have assessed the Donnell property purchase of $300,000, which is packed. And then lastly, we have assessed a 50% of expenses to date factor on the central fire station of expenses to date, or $325,000. How we got to those percentages, by the way, is based on the overall Black River study. 40% of the overall cost was police, 50% was central, and 10% was West Beach. So we're just following suit in that regard and those assessments. Lastly, on the page, we have Station 2, the present plan. If you recall, there was a design proposed for a new fire station adjacent to the existing West Brattleboro fire station. And we're using the same construction costs that both DEW and our architect had provided for us earlier of $1,200,000. Architect fees to complete that design and for construction administration would be $25,000. A 6% factor for furniture and equipment would be $72,000. Again, our 10% contingency of $128,000. And lastly, we have assessed that remaining 10% of cost to date, expenses to date, to station number 2 of $65,000. All in, this proposed scenario would change the bottom line of the 3 projects to approximately $12,900,000, with a very heavy caveat that until we purchase that or find that property, that figure could change. It would be the building committee's goal to do everything we could to find the least expensive but most suitable property available in the town of Brattleboro.
Thank you, Steve. Patrick?
Yes, I certainly expected that Robin would be here. and if she were, I'm sure she would say the following. It's probably important to note that one of the votes the committee had at their meeting was to recommend to the select board that we not proceed to scheduling a representative town meeting until such time as the specific property for the police department has been identified and evaluated. And I think what we have learned in the intervening couple of days is that that's perhaps decent advice. Steve Phillips raised the question of whether or not we could proceed with a bond vote based on an allowance for a property to purchase. And in discussions with Attorney Fisher about the issue, he felt that the statutes are clear in that in order to warn a bond vote at a representative town meeting, we need to identify the object and the purpose for which the indebtedness is for which we are borrowing money. And so in order to satisfy the requirement that we adequately state the object, it makes sense to go ahead and identify the property, which would then be the object. So let's see. That's what I think Robin would convey. Am I missing anything, Kathy?
No, I think what we want to say this evening were these figures that you just have in your package, and then the total was $12,900,000. And it was that we want to be able to identify a building or a location before a special town meeting. I had that written down to say. The other part is, and the newspaper reported, there is a subcommittee that will look at existing buildings because there's several that are for sale in town that we need to at least be aware of and see if something existing could work. And with our new chief, Mr. Fitzgerald, there's a subcommittee of Chief Fitzgerald, Russell Rice, our town assessor, myself, Robin Sweetapple, and Steve Horton would be the subcommittee that would visit the properties and bring a report back to the fire police. So we would have real data and some ideas, because really we're starting over for the police station. But we also, as a committee, and Patrick, you were at that meeting, and Mr. Schultz and John Allen, we've all agreed that fire is important, but the police, we have to go forward as a one whole project, that the aspects, West Brattleboro Station, the Central Fire, and the police are all interwoven, all important, and we just want to make sure that we give equal importance to all three projects. So the subcommittee will be visiting properties in the next 2 weeks, so that our next committee meeting is the 6th of November. So hopefully we can search and look and just have some ideas of what might be available. I think that's all we said we're going to say.
Yeah. I have nothing. They've covered it very well.
Comments or questions from anybody on the board? Want to start with the people who are on the committee, Dave or John?
I really, they've covered everything that we talked about. I was hoping Russell Rice was going to be here tonight, but he is absent because he was going to shed some light on maybe some of the properties that were available. Chief Fitzgerald and I had a good talk after the meeting and kind of earmarked some of the buildings, but we're still not sure what's 100% available at this point. And so it would be kind of premature. Thank you. Premature to say anything yet, but there's some really good properties out there. And I think the big conclusion was that we really can't add on to this building. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that came out of the meeting. Would you agree, Patrick? That and I think if Robin was here,
preceding meeting, actually.
yeah, that was. So it's trying to. And Kathy, you're right. It has to be a group thing. It has to be all three, and that's what we're looking for.
John, just the only other thing I would add, John just kind of referred to, and that was that it became really clear that waiting for some point in the future to the police project was just not a good idea. and will wind up costing more than anyway.
Go ahead.
I just have a question.
So feel free to come back before 2 weeks. Kate?
I just have a question, because I only have Plan F in front of me. Can you give us what the original prices or costs were that got us up to the 14, by how you have it broken down here? Or just the, Police, Central, and West B?
Central and West B are pretty much
the same.
Right, we did save some money at West Brattleboro because by going to a new station and not retrofitting what we had and adding on, we saved, what was that, Steve? Was it 200,000?
Yes.
So that 200,000, and then by having a police station not be added onto this building, that's where this figure comes down. And he's got all the figures. We have the same worksheet that you have, Kate.
Yeah.
And so we let Steve talk to all the particulars, but it's moving that police station away from this site that's so tight with tying it into this building brings that cost down. Would you speak to that, please?
Sure. First, Kate, to answer your question, without doing the simple math, which is the original total was $14,132,974. Simply put, 50% of that would be central, 40% of that would be police, and then 10% would have been allocated to West Brattleboro or Station 2. That is inclusive of both construction costs and all soft costs, property purchases, and that type of thing. So I could have you do that math rather quickly, but that's how it does break down.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out where we saved, on what project we saved the money on.
Yes, there's a couple of things that through the first efforts, one, we were able to essentially, moving forward on this plan, we have saved some money on the West B original concept by the way we've looked at it, in essence, by using the new building versus renovating the old and so forth. But the other factor is predominantly, and it's in flux because we don't know what the new property would look like, so it's really hard to compare an unknown quantity against what we knew from the past. But let me tell you what we knew from the past, and that is that the municipal center renovations and additions for the police department had certain factors to it because of the age of this building, and that adding on to a building of this type, which does not have certain qualities to it already, such as seismic bracing and so forth, would have caused some significant additions to this building to allow it to be a building that would withstand earthquake and other great hazards. And so we had to factor in some of those costs in this building, as well as separating the new addition to this building because of its particular type. But the other factor here at the municipal center was that there was a significant amount of site work that had to be done to accommodate parking needs for not only the police department, but the fact that we were impacting the rear parking lot caused us to add a fair amount of islands, rain gardens, and drainage. And the site package was headed towards $1 million out back, literally. And so this effort is to try to eliminate those costs that wouldn't benefit the police department outcome, but would have had to be spent in order to prepare this building and the parking area and surrounding property to accommodate an expansion to the police department.
So basically, the 1.2 million is saved out of the police.
Yes, it's true. That's our hope, absolutely. And I'm not trying to be, I am being too cautious, but I just want to remind everybody that that's all based on if we can find a property for $850,000, and if on that property there's a building that's the right size and it can be renovated for $150,000. Not unreasonable, but that's still to be proven. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
right, for the, because everybody doesn't have these numbers in front of you, what Steve just said was, if there's an existing building that we could use, then the renovation cost would be $150 a square foot versus $200 for new construction. So given that we're looking at 16,000 square feet to take all the programs that the police need, that's quite a bit of money saved. So that's, when we get to look in these buildings, it'll be really interesting what the choices and whether there isn't something that will suit this town in a very good way going forward, 50 years forward.
I just noticed Robin came in. Do you want to come up?
They're doing a great job.
Hey, no, that's fine.
I would like to ask a question, perhaps. These figures we've given you reduce the original figure by almost 10%, if you subtract it out. Now, my question, and this is the one that's so difficult to answer, is this in the ballpark of what you people are thinking of, or do you have a figure like 6 million? Because I would be disappointed if the committee proceeded to work it all out based on something like this and have you come back and say, well, we can only afford 6,500,000. I mean, is this figure of 12,900,000 reasonable?
Can I ask a question that sort of goes along with that question?
Go for it.
Like, and this is for us sort of timing-wise. I mean, we're putting together the FY16 budget, like, starting
Yesterday.
now. If we don't, if the site is not selected by the time we put the FY16 budget in, is that going to mean we can't move forward? I'm trying to figure out if we get, we're not going to be asking for the approval of a bond. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
I guess the inquiry is, when is the tax rate set? Because last year, we didn't have a budget finalized until mid-June, I think it was, or certainly late May. So when is the latest time for setting the tax rate, Patrick or John?
It's at the very end of the year, right before the turn of the fiscal year, which is right around when we do that. If we are to proceed forward utilizing the state bond bank, we would need to have, and if the board was in agreement that you wouldn't proceed to a representative town meeting without having first identified and sort of secured a site, if we were to go to the bond bank, I think they require our application by, what's it, May?
I think it is May 15th.
Alternatively, if we were to proceed to the bond market via a private lender, like a merchant's bank or somebody like that, we could do that at a different point in time. But I think David's point is spot on, which is knowing it in time to set the tax rate is probably the critical.
I guess I don't get it. I'm sorry to be stupid right now. But when we're going to get a budget together that we're going to ask town meeting to pass, but if it doesn't include the bond payments.
So we're going to be presenting the operating budget to town meeting in March, and we're going to be working on the operating budget over the course of the next 2 or 3 or 4 months. If town meeting authorizes spending more money by issuing bonds to borrow money to build this facility, that would be additional expense that's been authorized by the funding authority, being town meeting, and then we would cover all of those things as part of setting the tax rate. Does that answer the question?
It does, because it sort of goes to the question Mr. Chapman asked, which is how much would we,
Kate, go ahead.
how much would we propose to the town meeting reps? So it's
Exactly. That's
Right.
that's why, Mr. Chapman, I wish we had an answer. Again, I'm going to keep my personal feelings inside because I do let them tend to get out. But it's an unknown right now, and I don't think any one of us know what. I mean, I would love to see this. I would love to see this pass, the 12-9, and get moving ahead. But because it does have to go before a representative town meeting.
Would we have your blessing to at least work on this proposal and come back with site-specific and some of the hard data so everybody knows what we're talking about? I think that's why we're here tonight, to see if we're headed in the direction you hoped we would be heading in.
All right, I want to make sure now to hear from each of the board members about that question of the scope of the money. And Robin, I'll
Can we just clarify one thing, though, before?
Sure, go ahead.
That we're not asking for 12.9. It would be coming to the town for 7, not 12.9. I just want to make sure that that's clear before.
Well, it's 12.9 less the 5 that's been
Less the
purchased,
5,
that's already been
Exactly.
borrowed, so it's
Right.
7.9, almost $8 million.
Right.
So I guess now would be the opportunity for anybody on the board to speak to the dollar figure issue, just the raw dollar figure issue. Dave?
To answer as directly as I can, we have all said that we're committed to doing this project and doing it all at once. So I think when you come back with we're going to say, I'm sure we're going to say, yes, go get harder, better numbers for the police station. When you come back with those numbers, I would be very surprised, given all the things we've said, that we didn't then schedule a town meeting and have a vote on that and see if the town reps will support it. And the number that you bring us is the number that we've resisted setting a number because we want to get the information from you and in consultation with the chiefs. And so that's what we'll do. I don't think if you come back and it turns out it's 12.6 because you found a better piece of property or something, that's the number that we're going to put on the warning.
Other board members?
And you can all contradict me if I misstate it, but I think that's...
You ready?
Yeah, I am. So I appreciate the question, and certainly nobody on the board wants to have you continue to work this hard and bring us information only to reject that. So I feel very similarly to David's goals, that we are here, we know that the numbers that you're bringing us are estimates, as specific as you can bring them right now, and we hope to move forward, and I think you've done a great job to get the figure where it is right now, so I appreciate that.
You all spoken already to this?
You have another question.
No, I'm thinking this whole timeline through. That's just what I'm thinking.
The timeline?
My personal view is that the amount of spending authority that we're going to get from the town is very much up in the air. We have faced very, very significant pressure over the course of the last 2 or 3 budget years to try to keep tax increases to a bare minimum. And every round, I keep hearing John's words ringing in my ears, saying that he doesn't want any tax increases. And besides the capital infrastructure needs at these police fire buildings, there's probably $4.5 million worth of deferred capital expenses running in our capital plan that we keep pushing off year after year. And I am very reluctant at this point to commit to what's ultimately going to be what the town's going to be willing to pay for, because I don't know what the answer is. And I think we have to look at the other capital needs, these capital needs, and the operating budget as a whole, really, to get a picture of what the taxpayers can bear in town. I think we need to have a long-term plan and vision for how we're dealing with the capital expenses, these expenses, and operating issues before really being able to answer that question. So I would certainly encourage you to do your best job to come in with the best numbers possible on each of these 3 components, but what would ultimately be approved and how it'll be set out. I think it's anybody's guess at this point, because there's a big, big set of hurdles that we face.
I do agree with most of what David said, but I think again, I think this project is extremely necessary, and the longer we wait, the more money it's going to cost. And we've already bonded for that $5 million. And again, if we didn't already spend the $1 million, I may have a completely different view on this right now. But the fact that we are that much into it, I just think it's irresponsible of us not to try to move this thing forward. And again, I'm on the committee, and it's just heart-wrenching to see the work that has been put into this, and the long hours but again, Dave, you're right. This is the democratic way, and this is the process that you have to go through. Sometimes it's not pretty, but I really want to see this thing moving forward. So I will push and do whatever I can to get the word out and try to keep this thing moving.
Anybody else on the board at this point? So anybody who's in attendance and wants to speak to issues relating to the police fire? Spoon?
I have a statement that I'd like to read. There's 6 and actually, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to paraphrase.
Thank you, Stan.
I'm going to read part of it.
Thank you.
And I got a few more here that people can pass around. I'm not quite sure if it's enough for everybody. Spoon agave. What you're looking at is how I entitled it, the Police Fire Project Reconceived. This is an idea that I've been working with for a long time. It is not well developed in this little letter right here. As a little preface, when I was standing outside at the beginning waiting for things to get going, there was no room to come in, and I handed this to Steve Barrett. And he read it, and he handed it back. He said, "That's interesting." And the next thing he said was, we could put another deck on the parking garage and run a walkway over to the firehouse. And I had to smile at that because it just absolutely reinforced what I'm going to say, is that this project has never really been opened up. From the beginning, it's been, and understandably at the beginning, but the board and the town has been working with blinders. It has only seen it and has only been able to see it as the police and fire project. In fact, I've always thought of it as something that was much larger, but a community project in which all of the community needs would be taken into consideration. We have very little money to work with. We don't know how much money we're going to have in the future. So we really have to make everything count. That's the first part. The second part is that, as I have said recently, and I say again, and will be saying for many years to come, that what is going to enable our town, Brattleboro, and all towns in all places to be able to survive and survive well in these uncertain times, which are only going to become more uncertain and more stressed, is going to be the strength of the fabric of the community. And it's going to be people, because we are not going to have money. We're going to have less and less all the time. We're going to be restricted on energy as it becomes necessary not to burn fossil fuels. Other resources are always dwindling. So what we have And what we only have and will always have, however, are people and land. And consequently, when I think of the community and spending large amounts of money on projects, I have to think about it in terms of what really does the most good for the community, looking at not necessarily what we need now, but what we will need in the future. And what we will need is to build that fabric again, so we don't have just 20% of the population voting and all the commission seats unfilled, and well, there's 1,000 ways that you can actually measure how community life has diminished over the years. And that can all be rebuilt. And so what you look at here is a project that's a little different and less expensive. What it says, and I'll just sum it up, instead that we put a couple of more floors, maybe one is necessary, 1.5, I don't know, on the fire station, move the upstairs town offices that are here over to there, because this building's running out of time anyway. So we might as well deal with that. When there is money in the future to build a police station, then we will have essentially emptied this building, which is probably what is inevitable anyway. Will have to be inevitable. And that would be essentially, and then the police will have plenty of room to spread out. And in this building, they'll have most of the upstairs, and they will be able to do the most important things, and that is to get everything out of the basement. And the cost of that project could well be $1 million or $2 million less than what is being proposed now. And we get a lot more from it. Key in this project is not only moving the offices over to the fire station, and they would be designed to be effective town offices with everything next to each other that you want, and designed with all the modern electronic technology, etc. But a meeting room, a select board meeting room primarily, but at least 2 or 3 or 4 more meeting rooms because we have so many things happening. But primarily a select board meeting room that would be much larger to handle a much greater amount of participation, and it would be technologically up to date. You could show films, everybody could see, everybody could hear. You could do all the things that you would like to do in this electronic world. But primarily, it would be a space large enough and function smoothly and well for a much larger number of people. Conceivably, it could be large enough to actually house a town representative meeting. Therefore, you're not renting spaces and spending a lot of extra money on that account. And the point is that if you ever allow the town, all the people in this town, to imagine what an ideal town infrastructure would look like, you would get tons and tons of really interesting and unique ideas that may be found to be much more useful than everything we're trying to do now, or only what we're trying to do now. And I'll stop right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Spoon. Anybody else want to speak to the police fire issues? Howard?
Can I just ask clarification? So, Patrick, before there is to be a vote on a bond, it has to be a specific address? Or did you say...
It doesn't state specific address. It says to identify the object and the purpose for the borrowing.
So a vote on a bond could be held without a specific property identified?
You're asking a question, a legal question, for interpreting the statute to somebody who's not a lawyer. I discussed it with Fisher, and Fisher's recommendation was that to satisfy the statute in terms of being able to identify the object for which funds were to be borrowed, his recommendation was that we know the location.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else want to speak to the police fire issues? I think I heard the sense of the board being that we'd like the police fire committee to continue moving ahead along the lines that you're currently contemplating. Is that the message you heard, and is that what you were looking for?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, and I would also like to, thank you. We really appreciate it. We'll work hard. And thank you, Spoon. You always have interesting ideas, so that's where the committee is now. If we look around, what else could we be doing? So thank you for good ideas.
Well, thank you. Next item on the agenda, and thanks for coming tonight. Next item on the agenda is, before we leave this item, I should note that as part of the analysis, the question has been raised whether we need to have the West Brattleboro Fire Station as part of the system. And we have been collecting data with the goal of discussing that question and presenting information about that to the community as a whole. We would have had that on the agenda today, but we didn't have the last critical piece of information about insurance rates. So we weren't prepared to go forward with that discussion today. But either 2 or 4 weeks out, there will be a discussion at a forthcoming select board meeting about whether the West Brattleboro Station is a necessary part of the emergency response system, looking at response times, looking at insurance rates, and any other relevant factors. So that is another topic that we're looking at so that we can talk about all these issues from the broadest perspective possible. So the next item on the agenda is the Citizen Police Communication Committee mission statement. Are there people from the Citizen Police Communication Committee who would like to come up to the table?
Fellow members here. We may need a little bit of guidance.
Chief, if you want to come on up, you know, I think that'd be a good thing. James, we can get another chair if you want to. You're on the committee too.
Jan, can I ask for some guidance? This was warned as a CPCC meeting, so do we need to call a quorum and do approval of minutes? If we are actually not ready to do that, so if that's what we need to do, I'll make a motion to table the minutes until our next meeting.
The minutes come after the meeting.
No, I mean our September minutes.
No. That will be taken up at the next regular meeting. This is a special meeting.
Great.
Right. So this is just a select board meeting, but because because a quorum of your committees here, it's also noticed separately. But I don't think any separate action is necessary.
Thank you.
So we have some materials in the binder talking about the Citizen Police Communication Committee mission statement, and I understand that you wanted to propose making a change to that mission statement. So whoever wants to speak for the committee should do that. Maybe you start by introducing yourselves.
My name's Ann Wright.
My name is Robin Flatley.
My name is James Van Slaven. Mike Fitzgerald.
Excellent. So whoever wants to tell us about why you're here.
Well, we have been looking at our mission statement and also the committee bylaws over the course of the last year and wanted to make a change to the mission statement as it appears on the town's website currently. And I did neglect to ask Jan about what was going to be provided, and I'm assuming that you're looking at the mission statement as it is on the current website, or?
We have the current version, and then we have the minutes which
Great.
has got the
Okay.
proposed mission statement, so we've got them both.
Okay, super. So what we're looking to do is we are looking to change the mission statement from the longer statement that starts out our primary mission and then goes down to the Citizen Police Communication Committee will with the 4 bullet points and some sub-bullets to simply the statement of the mission, which you have from our minutes the last time. If anybody feels that they'd like me to read them, I'm happy to do
Do you want to read to us the mission statement you want us to consider?
Sure. So the proposed mission statement is, the mission of the Citizen Police Communications Committee is to facilitate mutually respectful communication between citizens and the Brattleboro Police Department regarding complaints, compliments, or information concerning police procedures.
What was the old one?
It's the next page in the binder.
It's in the minutes. It's in your right hand.
Maybe you could tell us why you want to change the mission statement.
Certainly.
Please.
Certainly.
Thank
Well, as I'm looking at this now, it's unclear. To me, the first sentence is the mission statement, and everything that's currently listed also under mission statement as the CPCC will is more like a charter or what we were tasked to do or what the committee was tasked to do when initially the committee was set up. As the committee has evolved to what it is today, we're not actually following this type of stuff in the way that it's written. We do provide a forum. We have complaints and compliments that come through as part of our minutes. We don't conduct community outreach. And the piece about encouraging conflict resolution through mediation is part of the process, actually. What we've worked on and what we've been able to come up with in the last year is actually a complaint packet and facilitation, mediation. Actually, we aren't in a position to be able to facilitate. All we can do is encourage mediation. The packet, as it stands right now, has a place for citizens to say whether or not they would like to be contacted by the CPCC. Some do and some don't. And also whether they are open to mediation. So Chief Fitzgerald has that piece of information right from the outset with the citizen complaint report, which is what James is holding up here. What we have found is that what we are is kind of the keepers of the process. Our job basically is to make sure that all the complaints are, that the complaints have a place to land, which is with our committee, and that if a citizen who goes through the complaint process, which at this point is a formal process that's initiated within the police department, which also has a component that's a follow-up. And typically what we're finding is that by following this process, most of what comes through as a complaint is a misunderstanding of police procedure or policy. And once somebody from the police department actually sits down with a complainant and they have a chance, one-on-one, for the complainant to hear what their issues were and for the person from the police department to explain their policies and procedures. In the last year, I don't think we've had anything that's gone beyond that. Most people are happy with the process, and that's documented, and it's kept on record at the police department.
Excellent. That's a good explanation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I just want to make sure. Is there anybody else on the committee who wants to speak to this at all? Robin or James?
Well, I'm personally really happy that the statement is succinct. I thought it was a little meandering and maybe possibly misleading, and I'm really happy with the coordination and the verbiage.
I love the idea of the mission statement because it is a simplified mission statement. Anything else could be incorporated later by the select board. You are our bosses. We're supposed to follow your lead and your charge.
And Chief, you're comfortable with this, the way it's rewritten?
Yes, sir. I'm not on the committee, but I fully endorse this new mission statement. It's clean, it's concise, and it pretty much states in a sentence exactly what their charge is.
Anybody on the board?
No, that's what I was going to say. I just like the fact that it's gone from that to something very simplified. It makes it much easier to follow.
Anybody who's in attendance have anything that they want to add to this? Well, if there's no other comments, we're probably ready for a motion.
To approve the mission statement of the Citizens Police Communication Committee as presented.
We have a motion to approve and adopt the revised CPCC mission statement. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you very much.
Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the members of the CPCC and the town of Brattleboro and the police and the late Gail Cooper, of course, to make the CPCC available. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to encourage citizens to participate. If they do have issues, you can get an application at the police department. But I got involved a couple years ago with a very high-profile issue, and I've sort of stuck it out in the long run. And I find, for someone who tends to be exploratory and challenging, I have found this a great venue for bringing opportunity for positive change and even long-term change. And I do think this could be a model for other communities, other states, and possibly more at a time in history where there's a lot of fear and apprehension towards authority. I think this is a wonderful committee that's available to us. And it works if you work it, and I encourage citizens to participate if they feel they need to. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the staffing level review process. We began after last town meeting to have any staff changes or new hires presented to us in order to review staffing levels. And we've gone through that process for about 6 or 8 months now. And our initial vote was to do it for a 6-month period. So the question is whether we want to stop doing it now or continue doing it. That's why it's on the agenda. What's everybody's pleasure? Okay.
I was going to say, I think it's been a fairly useful process, and I would suggest we extend it for another 6 months. I hope that it hasn't been too labor-intensive for the administration.
And it hasn't caused any delay because we hear about it within a couple of weeks. Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of where Donnie is. If it's not labor-intensive, I just find it useful because we know what's going on. And I don't think we've stopped anything from happening.
John?
I haven't given much. I'm being totally honest. I'm sorry. I haven't given it that much thought. I mean, and I know I should have, but it's just one of the things that I haven't focused on too much because I just don't get it. None of us really get involved that much with it, so it's.
Well, one of the things I've found interesting too is I don't think we've done very many.
Either do I. That's what I mean.
There are 3 that I can remember doing.
Yeah, and so it's. It's out there, and
But in some ways that's informative that we've only done 3, which means
maybe that's good.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So based upon what I just heard everybody say, I would vote in favor of continuing this forward for another 6 months because people find it to be useful information. Patrick?
If the board finds it to be useful information, that's good to know. I will say it is an additional memo that needs to be drafted. It's usually an additional meeting between the department head and myself. It is some measure of additional work. You know, was it crushing? No. Certainly not. But as to its merit, it escapes me.
Can I ask a question about that? When they come to you, like right now when there's an opening, the department head comes to you anyway and says, there's an opening, and we advertise for it. Okay, so we're not asking them, they're coming to you anyway. So is it like...
It's the process of documenting it and such.
Okay.
Really, it's the
Hey,
long
Dave, we may vote, Dave, we may vote when you're out.
Please do.
Okay.
Another interested party.
Very impassioned about this.
Yes, passionate. Well, I'm glad to hear from Patrick, you know, because I really wanted to know what it entailed. And there is some level of work involved in this. And do we reap enough out of it to, so.
I mean, what I would suggest, and I recall, I think I mentioned this once before, is that, you know, we could sit down and take a look at the staffing structure town-wide and sort of proactively determine, is this the staffing level that is appropriate for, you know, is this the level of service that the town wishes to deliver? It seems a more proactive approach than waiting for individual circumstances to yield a potential opportunity that hasn't, up until now,
Go ahead. It just seems to me
been realized.
that process seems a little bit more micromanaging to me. You know, to look at, because I don't know what the staffing level should be at in certain departments without getting a lot of feedback from, you know, from either the department head or the employees involved. So it's, you know.
I think that one of the long-term tasks that we should try to tackle is to make sure that we are delivering town services in the most effective way possible. That comprehensive review of town offices is a project and a goal that we should be striving towards. But I think as employees move on to other positions, to bring it to us so we understand the personnel movements and understand how staffing levels exist at given points it's been useful information. And so I think we should continue getting that information in the next 6 months, and some of us find it useful.
Yeah.
I move to continue the staffing level reviews for the next 6 months. Patrick?
Yes. The manner in which you articulated the motion back in March clarified that it was for full-time positions and not for you know, part-time or seasonal employees. Can we? Is that a continuation of the same acceptable in your mind?
I think that's what I was articulating. That's right.
I'm fine with
I
that.
move to continue the staffing level reviews for the next 6 months. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining?
Yeah.
All right, that carries 4-0 and an abstention. He was missing. The next matter on the agenda is Connecticut River Transit. Is it Mr. Turk?
Randy Shoemaker.
Mr. Shoemaker, do you want to come up to the table? Or you want to go to the microphone over there? Your call. The room's emptied out, sorry.
Be comfortable.
You want to introduce yourself and
Certainly.
tell us why you're here?
Randy Shoemaker. I'm the general manager of Deerfield Valley Transit Association, and we're also currently the management contractor for Connecticut River Transit. and I believe the select board had interest in what's happening with our two companies and the status of the board makeup moving forward, if I have that right. And I supplied Patrick an overview of what was happening during the merger process. I don't know if the board's had a chance to read that or has questions or needs to, would like to go through it. But basically, we are consolidating two companies. We're not trying to use the word merge, but we are consolidating both companies on a phase basis. Some part of the phasing will happen in January, and the final phasing will be in July. We're two nonprofits and got several attorneys involved in it, so we're still working on bylaws, but we've worked on concepts and sharing and board makeup and our future to the point that we hope to make both goals. CRT will become a subsidiary of the DVTA by January 1st, and then on July 1st, the DVTA will simply change its name and will become Southeast Vermont Transit. We will service 37 towns, and we'll do things like have one grant application and one audit, and et cetera. But until that time, CRT continues to operate, continues to exist. On January 1st, their board will go from as many as 11 members, I think there's 9 currently, to 4, and the DVTA board will go from its current 5 members to 4. So we will have a joint board of 8 people representing the 37 towns starting on January 1st, and the DVTA will amend its bylaws to manage CRT, and we will make other bylaw changes as to how the company will be governed and operating henceforth. So we could not really do it in the middle of a fiscal year because of our grant agreements and our agreements with human service partners, et cetera. So thus the staggered process. And I'm not if you have questions on the process, please jump in.
Well, Randy, I think that one of the concerns that I've heard expressed is that in the current memorandum of understanding between the town and Connecticut River Transit, there's representation by the town on the Connecticut River Transit Board, and that would appear, at least in theory, to help to protect the town's interests, since it's making a substantial cash contribution to the operation of the bus service. And I'm wondering, it sounds like with the new board structure, you don't contemplate having municipal representation on the board. So then how is this new Southeastern Vermont Transit going to make sure that the interests of towns that are paying substantial money into the system are protected?
The answer is that the municipally based board membership that currently is part of CRT's structure, most of their board members are municipally driven or municipally appointed or municipally focused. That needs to be absorbed into a more regional approach, and that needs to incorporate our towns as well as our board members in a shared board structure going forward. So it isn't that we're discriminating against towns or we're losing towns or discouraging town membership, but we're trying to work with 2 boards that we have now, and the CRT board has said we're going to take 4 board members moving forward from the 9 that we have, and these 4 will be these people, and then they will blend with our 4 people. So I will say that throughout both companies, there are towns, there are condominium associations, there are resorts, there are human service partners, all that contribute substantial amounts of funding to us and support. And there was never room on our boards to have all that representation as need be. And certainly Brattleboro's $50,000 is among the larger of them. But it does not mean that Brattleboro is going to be any less represented in the future than it is going forward. I'd like to have you consider that we're going to have two companies for the time being looking after Brattleboro instead of one, because you've always had Connecticut River Transit, and DVTA has come into this town to provide service at CRTs and the town's convenience. So I would like to think that Brattleboro has gained a whole company and a whole nother board, not necessarily direct representative from the town, but certainly a lot more interest from a neighboring operator, and I think we bring a lot of expertise and experience to the area, not to toot our horn, but to say that expertise, that experience is in serving riders in this town. We're here every day with our different routes coming in from the Deerfield Valley. We've just changed our schedule and expanded service from Brattleboro to Bennington, so that there's now 2 round trips a day, and we're seeing a real spike in ridership on that route. A lot of people coming from Bennington to here for transportation and for services not available in Bennington. So these are the types of things that your board and your 2 companies will bring to you, and not at the expense of having your own person being at the table. So I think you've gained another company and another set of eyes and some experience in lieu of having your own specially appointed member. And the board is going to be a moving board, in that there's people that are going to come and go from the board, and there's always opportunity for Brattleboro to have somebody on the board or to express interest to be on the board. I know we have a board member leaving in July, and I can't speak for the current CRT board, but there will be vacancies available, and obviously we would be petitioning the whole region for representatives on the board.
John?
So, no, Kate and I were just talking a little bit about the fact, that just because we're not being represented, because of the $50,000 that we do give, we can, that's our oversight to some degree. I mean, because we could just, if we don't like how things are going,
That's right.
We can, and it's not dangling anything, it's not certainly strong-arming anybody, it's just, that's what we have, that's what we're giving, and so, I think it's, I don't see a big...
You have our attention, and we're right next door, and
Yeah.
Patrick knows where to get a hold of us, and I think we will continue to keep a very close eye on things. We have plans for Brattleboro. We would like very much to bring in electronic fare boxes and simplify some of the token structures. We've done some marketing that hasn't been done before. I'd like to find some more money someplace to make the headways a little bit shorter and just take some of the confusion out of the bus schedule right now, which I think is very difficult to understand. So those are the types of things we'd like to bring to the table and to work on, and we're going to do that. Certainly, I think we have a vested interest in Brattleboro that we really don't have in any other town in this new region, because we both share it, and there's so much going on here. So you have our attention, and you know where to find us.
Is ridership up?
Ridership in the CRT existing territory for the last fiscal year that ended on June 30th was down. I can't remember what the percentage was, but of all the routes that showed an increase, the only 3 that were up over the previous year were Brattleboro's 3 routes.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? And you probably don't have these now, but is it possible to get ridership numbers? Like, I'd be interested to know how many people originate in Bennington and come to Brattleboro. I mean, is that too new?
We could do a couple-week study and sample that for you. The ridership on the Brattleboro to Bennington bus every day is, it can go from 10 to 30 or 40, so it's still very small. But up until we did this time, we had 5 or 10 people a day. So we are seeing more people. I have ridership numbers for Brattleboro's routes if you wanted those.
Well, I was just sort of curious on...
You worried about Bennington?
Well, I was just curious on, like, how many people come to Bennington?
Or Brattleboro from?
And do they go back, or do they stay?
When
I'm just curious.
See,
But-
I knew where she was going.
But before we made the schedule change, about a month ago, we had 2 trips, we had 3 trips a day, 2 in one direction and 1 in the other. So you couldn't go from Bennington to Brattleboro and back in the same day. You could go from Brattleboro to Bennington, but not the other way. So we've messed with the schedule, and we got it so that you can go both ways, both times. And my guess is, from driving the bus a couple of times, that most of the people are round trippers now. They come from there and go from here and vice versa. There are a few people, I don't know why, but there's people from Bennington that come over here to get on Greyhound. They are 40 minutes from Albany, and there's a train and a bus leaving from Albany every 55 minutes.
See, Kate's nervous because I'm from Bennington, and I came over.
Oh, okay.
And I never went back there. Yeah, so
Okay. Well, we can get you a ride. I've got my time, but we can get you a ride.
All right, so I guess the issue is that this memorandum of understanding does contemplate seat for Brattleboro on the board. And when it comes time for it to be renewed and rewritten come next spring, we may want to at least address in some way how the town can have input to follow up on the money that it's putting into the system in some formal way. So you might be thinking about that anyway, because we're not going to have a memorandum of understanding going forward that says we have a seat on the board.
Sure.
But I'm sure you're going to want one going forward that says we keep putting in money.
Yes.
And having some sort of mechanism for input that's formal would be nice to see.
It's understood.
What do you think about that?
Yep, and I think we can do a better job providing an annual report or quarterly reports to you on activities, issues, ridership, et cetera. So we're happy to do that as well.
interesting to see. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you for your
Any other
support.
questions? Just to say, you can send it electronically too. You don't have to come or send us paper and stuff. Just,
Send it to Patrick.
that'd be good.
Will do.
And I would ask if anybody who's in attendance has any questions for you. But
We'll look at those 2 guys.
thank you.
Thank you very much for your support.
All right.
Take care.
The next and the last item on the agenda is the November 4th meeting. So Patrick, I understand that to save money, we're not renting the gym at the high school anymore for municipal elections, and we're doing elections here in the select board meeting room and the Hannah Cosman room. So where can the select board meeting be on November 4th?
I think the best choice for the select board would be to meet upstairs on floor 3 in the BCTV studio, where a live transmission can be provided, and where folks who are accustomed to attending select board meetings can still come to the same building.
And the elevator goes up to the 3rd floor of this building?
It does.
Excellent. So
And it'd be free.
everybody's, what's that?
It would be at no charge.
The elevator.
No, the different location.
All right. So this is notice that our next meeting on November 4th will be on the 3rd floor of the Municipal Center in the BCTV studio rather than here in the Select Board meeting room, because the election's going to be in here. And everybody should get out and vote on November 4th. Somebody want to read the
I'll do it.
calendar?
Town of Brattleboro calendar. Wednesday, October 22nd, 6 p.m., the Ad Hoc Futures Committee in the Hannah Cosman room. Also at 6 p.m., the Planning Commission in the Select Board room. Thursday, October 23rd, 6:30 p.m., the Board of Civil Authority in the Hannah Cosman room. Monday, October 27th at 5:30, the Citizens Police Communications Committee in the library, Brooks Memorial Library Community Room. Tuesday, October 28th at 8:30 a.m., the Traffic Safety Committee in the Select Board Room. And at 5:15 on Tuesday, the 28th, the Conservation Commission in the Hannah Cosman Room. Friday, October 31st, 6 p.m., the Horribles Parade. And on Monday, November 3rd, at 5 p.m., the Energy Committee in the Hannah Cosman Room. And at 6 p.m., the Planning Commission in the Select Board meeting room. Tuesday, November 4th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., general election, polls open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. here in the Selectmen and in the Hannah Cosman meeting rooms. And also on Tuesday, the 4th at 6:15, Select Board will be meeting in the BCTV studio on the 3rd floor of the Municipal Center.
We're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thank you, BCTV. Thank you, ASL interpreters. Thank you, members of the press. Thank you, everybody who was watching. Good night.